So welcome one and all to another live stream. Today I'm pleased to be promoting and presenting the Poperty Quorum, where we get together property experts du jour to talk about topics that are irritating and sometimes even interesting. May I introduce to you, if you don't remember, of course, Juliet Baboolal of gunnercooke, a accomplished lawyer, specialist in the scene. Chris Gilsenan of Root Home, a gentleman who spent many years developing properties, especially in the social housing space, and Hamish McLay of Search and Convey, a gentleman who's no stranger to looking behind the scenes and helping people with their searches. But we are also joined today by a special guest, Paul Kielman. So I'm going to bring him onto the stage. Paul, welcome.
Hello.
You are of Kielman Mortgages.
Kielman Mortgages. Yeah.
Perfect. I do apologize for mispronouncing it. So it's always good to have a person who deals with the money on the scene here, because frankly, it's all a bit of a mystery to me. But today's topic, which I think is going to be intriguing for most, is all about the old 99% mortgage. Wow. I remember the last time we had 99% mortgages, it wasn't a particularly good time. Hamish, what the hell's going on?
Well, I think what we do have is, I guess it's the old numbers game, and it's not necessarily to do with the numbers about mortgages. I can't figure out whether it's somebody sort of making a political statement to try and capture the numbers of people to vote for them, or whether in reality it's going to be doing the property industry any good at all. Government intervention isn't best known for its being able to assist what's going on with housing. It keeps hiding away from its one of its major aspects that it could contribute to, like giving us some more housing stock. It just keeps coming up with these other ideas. It doesn't quite think them out. I don't know about this one, which is why it's rather handy having somebody like Paul along.
And on that note, I'm going to throw Paul straight under the jalopy. Paul, can you tell us what the hell's going on? I mean, is this just to appease the far right who want to point out that they're trying to help everyone with this great idea?
Well, I think you've got a lot of people stuck in renting. You've got a lot of first-time buyers that need a hand getting onto the market. But I'm a bit unsure on this one. It's a bit. It is like Hamish just said. I believe they're probably looking for votes at this stage with the election looming. I would suggest that that's probably the case, but I'm not so sure this is the way forward. It's gone wrong before. It went wrong before the credit crunch.
I remember around that time, lots of people ending up in no ability to service their mortgage and ending up handing the keys back.
Well, this is my main concern. If as long as it's done properly and everyone can switch at the end of deals and no one's left in negative equity, then. But I think if house prices are at the moment rocky, they're not certainly going down, but they're not certainly going up. And if we come to a point where you put someone on a 2 or 5 year deal, and then at the end of that 2 or 5 year deal, properties have come down in value, I hope that there's some sort of plan within this that allows a customer still to switch to a cheaper product. Because once their 2 or 5 year deal ends, they go onto the lender's standard variable rate. And some of those standard variable rates at the moment are 8 or 9%. And that's not a place. I have to deal with that all the time. That's not a place where you want to be. So as long as there's all, a means to an end with this, where you can switch to a cheaper product at the end of the 2 or 5 year deal, that would be my main.
Hang on a moment. You're suggesting this has actually been thought through?
Yeah. Well, this is another thing. I think because obviously the budget's next week, and I really think that they're just going to throw this at us, and they're just going to say to the mortgage lenders and the mortgage brokers, "Here's the product. You're allowed to do it. here, just crack on with it. And that really would go against the financial conduct authorities treating customers fairly and consumer duty. I just think this might have a bit of, as long as it's been properly thought through and there's contingency plans for all, then I'm happy.
I'm just going to put my surreality hat on. Chris, they were just trying to help more people get on the property ladder, aren't we?
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think more people in the market, everyone should be able to own their own home. I absolutely believe that. And that's a wonderful thing. However, when supply has been choked for the last 40 years because they haven't built enough houses, and then the government thinks, oh, to win a few more votes, I'm going to throw a load more demand into the market without addressing supply, it's going to cause chaos. It's going to be bananas. It
will be bananas, won't it? It's going to be bananas.
Yep, it is. It's going to be absolutely wild. So it will be interesting to see what happens and to see how it plays out. As an investor who does a lot on market, it's going to probably push me out, and I'll have to completely revisit all my marketing strategies because I will not get a word in, because we'll have first-time buyers in the market fighting over everything and elevating prices. So I'd say if this comes to pass, within 3 to 6 months, we will see a massive spike in property prices.
Is that a good thing?
Nope. No, because it's short term. It's short term because the people that are coming into the market on that 99% mortgage, there's still a very small element of affordability in there, a very small element of them having to have skin in the game. But yeah, the higher the prices go, the more restrictive it is, the less people will be able to afford it. So it's short-termistic thinking. So it's going to be interesting.
So, Juliet, we've had a stagnant market. Is this the way to rejuvenate it?
Well, I think that the key word is short-term thinking, a quick fix, because the reality is if you've got that spike and then all of a sudden after a couple of years when these fixed rates come to an end, the market depreciates and these properties devalue, then what other deal are you going to climb on? Are you going to be able to refinance? If you were to sell the property, are you going to get your money back? Are you going to be able to repay the outstanding debt that you owe on that property? Look, when I bought my first property, I bought it with 100% mortgage from Scottish Widows, and It was a professional mortgage. Your only requirement was to be a professional that fit one of their criteria, and that was it. The reality is there's a whole host of things apart from the mortgage elements or the financing elements that a buyer or a first-time buyer needs to think about. They need to pay for searches, they need to pay for stamp duty. So it's not just, when you look at the articles, it's you can buy a property for £417,000 with a deposit of 4,100. So it's a great sell. It's a great sell, but you've got other responsibilities. And thinking in the long term, property investment is one of the biggest investments that you will make in your lifetime. And so thinking in terms of what happens when the fixed rate expires, what is my get out? Because, these first time buyers aren't getting in there because they want to be made bankrupt. And that's what will happen. If the bank can't have its money back, it will come after you to get the remaining debt. So, where does one draw the line, in terms of being realistic? And in terms of managing expectations, not just selling a dream and saying, yes, here you go, here are keys to your house. And this works as long as you can afford payments for 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. And then after that period expires, you're on your own, sort it out. That, it's just not going to work.
Wow. So, Paul, just great business for you then. Surely all these mortgages starting out of nowhere.
Well, yeah, initially it would be good, but if, like Chris says, it pushes the price up because of lack of stock, I then got to find, generally it's 4.5 times what you earn. Right. So for the 99% side of it, it's got to be 4.5 times. So when the price goes up, so does the 99%. And then if I'm struggling to get people on 90% mortgages, I ain't going to get them on 95, 99. They've got to be able to afford it, not for just the 2 and the 5 year, for the whole of the mortgage term.
Wow. But there's all these moves afoot, and we've got a budget just round the corner. Surely this is just going to give more optimism to a flat market.
Yeah, if you're stuck in renting, then absolutely, you've got no means of a 5 or 10% deposit. This might be a little glimmer of hope. And like Chris what Chris said, everyone should own their own home. If that's your dream, then it's up to people like me to make that a reality.
So you're just being a dream provider now, Paul, and you've got the perfect tool to do it. So forgive my cynicism, Hamish. Surely,
I mean, one of the things from my own perspective, I mean, there's going to be no difference to my input. My input continues to be exactly the same. I mean, my real sort of concern, I look at it coming from all three sectors. Juliet's got to, I mean, she's looking after her clients. She's looking at the risk that client's actually taking on with enough challenges without that financial thing coming in. And then, of course, there's Paul here being conscientious about what he does. He's not just going to dump things onto people. I mean, there are people that there are actually out there that will actually do it. Whoopee, whoopee, isn't this great? Yummy, yummy. The good old factory stuff. Let's throw it in there, without looking at what's going to be happening in 2 to 5 years. So there's Juliet looking at the challenge from that score. There's Paul looking at, and then, of course, on the other hand, there's somebody like Chris who's trying to help people by developing and getting into particular sort of properties. And he's going to stand back from all of this because it's a bun fight sort of going on there in front of him, and he can't get near the properties. So I don't want to put a damp squid on the whole thing, but I do rather think, well, they definitely need some votes, that's for sure, but I don't think this is a good way of doing it. I hope that some people can make a game from it, because I don't think it makes any difference what people say. I think they're going to go ahead and do it anyway.
Chris,
yeah, I think
let me just talk to you for a moment. With all due respect, because in our own podcast, we were talking about this the other day, you've seen ups and downs throughout a relatively long developing career. You've seen it. Is this just a fart in a tank and it'll be gone in a minute and then back to normal and normal service resumes?
I don't know. We effectively have a uniparty system, so it doesn't really matter which one you pick. They're all both centrist parties. They're all singing from the same hymn sheet. They just have slightly different verses. It's a vote-winning strategy. Whether it comes to pass, I don't know. Over the last 5 to 10 years, there have been so many U-turns on so many things that it's all meaningless what they say. So it may be the case that they may bring it in.
Isn't there so many U-turns that we're in fact just going around in a big circle?
Yes, there's an argument to say that things do go around in cycles, Gareth.
You were going to say something, Paul. Sorry. Sorry to put you on the spot. I
can't remember what it was. I was listening to that. Yeah, so we're almost back to where we were sort of 15, 20 years ago. No, I can't remember what I was going to interject then.
No, I probably 2004 in the cycle now. So it's going to go through that cycle if what they're saying comes to pass, and they do bring in a shed load more demand into the market and just open up the financial tap again without addressing the supply issue. So,
Juliet, supply has been on the top of our conversations a number of times. There's lack of it. Should we stop being a bunch of lefty liberals and put some pressure on the government to build more bloody stock?
Well, that's been the hymn sheet that they've been singing for so long, and they just haven't been able to deliver, and I think what we've got to do is work with what we've got. And, my advice to anyone sort of generically is that, if you're going to be taking up a 99% mortgage, do your diligence, do your homework. Hindsight is a beautiful thing. And when you're bitten, it's wonderful to look back and say, I could have done this. I should have asked questions, have the right advisors in place, which is something we've always said, and ask those questions. What happens after my fixed rate expires? What options have I got? What is out there? When you meet your estate agents, ask questions, look at affordability. I mean, those are things that obviously Paul will look at with his clients, but there is an onus on the client as well, on the buyer as well. And unfortunately, a lot of first-time buyers, it's sort of like, they need a lot of hand-holding, and they've got to accept that. So, knocking on the right doors and asking the right questions are imperative.
All right. So look, Hamish, before I wind this all up for today, should we be creating a hoo-ha about this? Is it really just a fart in a spacesuit? Is it just a transitory thing? Are we just going to get over ourselves and just get on with it after a while? Is this just another 2004 cycle? Or is there something really to be worried about here?
I think, Chris sort of pointed this out, and we sort of know this. If it's part of a mandate, one of the very clever things no, it's not clever.
Just call it one of the things they do.
They suggest, we have this great idea and we'll introduce it in 1925. And of course, they ain't going to be there in 1925 to introduce it anyway. So, there it goes, pop. Whether it's something which they do, and of course, I think everyone's mentioned this. If it's ill-conceived, if it hasn't been fully thought through, if the backup isn't there, like sort of Paul suggests, that there will be support relative within that. I think if it's just thrown in there, it's not going to do any good at all. But it may well be with everything else that's sort of going on. There's not the housing stock to accommodate it. It can push price because there is demand for property at the moment. That's why we found out, as Chris pointed out too, that the price is steady. And I think one of the things that Paul mentioned earlier in the week, which hasn't actually come out, we've got a valuer has to come in here and demonstrate the value of the property. So when he looks at the property and he's saying, well, actually, it ain't worth it's not worth 500,000. It's only worth 4,500. And so basically your lending is all screwed again anyway. So there's so many things in there which make it so complicated. As I said, I don't know who it's good for. But I'm sure Paul will find a few. It's good.
Paul, I'm going to leave you with the last word before we close this week's session off.
Well, what's the rate going to be? Obviously, for not even the 95%, you're sort of looking at a low 5 or 5.5%. What's the rate going to be for 99%? Are we talking 6% here? It worries me. Even a 40-year term, you'd be looking at £1,300 to £1,400 a month. Just for the initial scheme term.
Scary amounts of money, with potentially not the ability to pay it back long term, meaning that we could end up with a whole bunch of people on the old rental heap. Again, probably not even be able to afford that either.
And again, it goes back to what Juliet says. I don't want my clients getting bankrupt. That's not the game. They want roofs over their head. They want the property dream. Don't make them bankrupt.
And on that bombshell, I want to say thank you once again to Juliet Baboolal, Hamish, McLay, Chris Gilsenan, and our special guest, Paul Kielman. We're here every Thursday at 10 o'clock where we toss around ideas that are currently affecting the marketplace and occasionally even make jokes. But today, nothing particularly funny. Just a bit irritating, I would say. Let's see what happens at the budget day. If anybody has any thoughts or wants directions or concepts that you'd like us to cover, just approach any of the usual team, Juliet, Hamish, or Chris, or myself. But until next time, I would say to you all, try and have a successful week and conserve what little mental health we've all got left. Bye-bye now.